Everyone, Ryan Vlasic here, Coldwell Banker again at our studio downtown Corcoran. And I think we're going to talk about the season so far, like what we're seeing in the market. Is that what we're talking about today?
I guess that's one of the things we can talk about today. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see if it's, are we heading out of season? How has season been? And more in today's video. So please stay tuned. Well, here we are toward the middle of almost tax time, April 2026. I'll just start off by saying I personally feel like the season had a little bit of a late start. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I guess you can say it had a late start. Our season usually lasts until the week after Easter, and then everybody kind of clears out. At least that's what I'm seeing in Siesta Key. I'm noticing that there's a lot less traffic on the roads. The restaurants aren't quite as busy. It seems like there's a lot of people on the beach, but particularly on weekends, it's a lot more crowded now this time of year as it is during the week.
Do you think it's the people that have already bought, just here on
Just
vacation, or
vacationers.
okay? How can you tell?
You can tell.
They're really white and pasty.
Yeah, you can tell. Well, usually you can definitely tell in the wintertime whenever you see people swimming in the water that's like 60 degrees. You know that those are 100% vacationers.
I know we've been here so long, you can point them out. So, I don't know, just we had no agenda today other than just kind of talking like, general examples. I like listening to real life examples because what you see is different than what I see. And real estate's not all big wins. Everybody just sees the Instagram and like, oh, you just opened the door and did the sale, right? But there's been some losses in between. Like I've lost a couple listings, and of course, I like to watch them because I want to know that I'm right to an extent. Because one thing I'm particularly really good at is pricing my real estate and my listings, right? Pricing them to sell no matter what the market is. And there's been a couple that priced them at least 20,000 over and then ended up lowering and then getting the price close to where it would have been if I listed it within a small margin. Like it was less than what I suggested. Like the one that comes to mind was a suggested price of 1.399. They started at 155, then they lowered it to 145 and ended up selling for 1.3, like the 1.3 low range. But it took at least a month and a half. Whereas I think, and I was explaining off camera to Ryan, I probably could have gotten comparable in price, but in a shorter time. So it's like a little bit less on the tax proration, maybe a little less on the doc stamps. I don't know. But, we don't all win all the listings just because we got a listing appointment.
Hmm.
Do you?
No, and it's funny how you just mentioned the fact that the house sold for what you originally told them it should be priced at. So luckily for that seller, they sold it within a month or you know
It was pretty quick.
Yeah, so the average days on market right now is like 90 days on market. So they actually did pretty good, and they actually were serious about selling because they did the price reductions that were necessary in order to get it sold.
Right.
In a lot of cases, though, sellers just overprice their house and it sits on the market for 6 months or longer. And during that time frame, that seller is incurring so many expenses, and a lot of listing agents don't have the conversation like, hey, if we don't price this correctly and your house sits on the market, how much extra are you paying for, even if you have no loan on the property? You got property taxes, you have insurance, you have HOA dues, you have utility costs, you have maintenance and upkeep. All those things have to be factored into the conversation that you have with a potential seller so that you can price the house correctly in the beginning, because it not only benefits you, but it benefits them too, because it gets the money in their account a lot quicker.
And let's say hypothetically you list in February, but you price it a little too high, and you end up selling June and July. You end up closing June and July. Well, taxes in Florida are paid in arrears, which means come November, you're paying for the arrears January through the closing date. So the seller is crediting the buyer at closing for January through closing. So that's what a few extra months that you're
Mhm.
crediting the buyer to pay the full tax bill come November. So exactly what you're saying, you're incurring more costs, and we realize, and I know I probably talk about this on literally every single video, because it's real estate 101. It really is pricing at a dollar under value to actually get more in your pocket, because we get paid more, you get paid more, you're happy, you're over the moon, you're telling everybody about us and how great we are. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's not, right? And like when you see the price drops, it's a psychological thing. The buyers are watching these properties like hawks. Do you hear that from buyers? Because I do.
Yeah, so when you see price drops and you're a potential buyer, you know that that seller is at least serious about selling. So a lot of times you'll see a listing that's been on the market for like ever, and you see like maybe a few little price drops, little baby price drops here and there, and that's an indication to a buyer that that seller is not serious.
Like
And
like if
they,
it's like 1 million and you're dropping it 10,000, like you might as well just not drop the
mm-hmm,
price, right?
mm-hmm. And you see this a lot in like properties like condos where you could easily compare it to something else, and you have a seller that says, okay, I'm going to price mine higher because mine's better, but really you're comparing the same exact floor plan, the same square footage. Maybe they've got nicer appliances, but is it really worth $100,000 more to have a nicer stove?
Buyers will always tell us. That's the thing. They're going to tell us by the showings or the lack of showings, the crickets. They're going to tell us regardless. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, one of the things I do for every seller, because not everything is selling in a day, although I have two recent that I did, and I know you did too. I take a lot of time within the first 2 weeks. I put together a market email for my sellers, because I think it's very important. And I hear so many times, like, why did you let that first agent go? I didn't even know what they were doing to market. I don't know what they didn't communicate. I don't even know where my property was other than Zillow. I found it myself. So it takes about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, to put together one email for my seller to show them everything, because the key is in the communication. At the very end, I tally up what I can calculate for views. So in the big red bold, I say, this is how many people have viewed your property in 2 weeks. And then based on that, based on your home and the market, do we need a price drop? Do we need to talk? And then just keep them apprised of like the comps in the neighborhood going forward. But like, that's just something I do differently that I don't know that anybody does. And I've heard time and time again from sellers, like, I've never gotten this. I have so many properties. I just think it's like, it's not realistic to sell your property in a day in most cases. So you're going to have a long relationship with that person. They want to know what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
for,
Mm-hmm.
for X percent,
Right.
commission.
And also, I think a seller and the seller's agent needs to put themselves in the position of a potential buyer for that property and say, okay, if I'm searching properties like this one, what what are my options? If I've got 30 options versus if I have three options, then that's a big
And
issue for
how,
the seller.
well, and okay, that brings up the pricing point. How much leverage do we have on pricing? If there's no competition, you have more leverage. Case in point, well, we're still not closed, so I can't discuss, finite numbers and stuff. But I've had two listings recently that went pending in one day. One had three offers with a fourth as a backup that never went as a backup. And what do you think that's going to do to the price? It's going to keep it at the full ask, right? That one closed at like $100 over it, right? Because there were the three offers. The backup was a lot more, actually, because he was like, wow, you had three offers. And the other one was just similar in a totally different zip code location. That the first one is in Bradenton, the second one's in Sarasota. But I did a whole big diagram on the map to say, are there any others in this area? There are none.
Mm-hmm.
So when I originally talked to them, I said one price. I ended up increasing it by 50,000. We got an offer the first day. So
But you see how that works? Do you see
I
how
do, and it's
pricing the
beautiful.
house right in the beginning benefits the seller because you're going to get for every day that that house sits on the market, that's a day that it's more difficult for that seller to get anywhere near what they're asking.
Let's say the real number on a house, just a hypothetical, is $1 million. So if you price it at 1.1, or if you price it at 9.99, you're gonna get more eyes at what?
Yeah. Well, you're gonna get
999.
buyers that are searching up to a million. It's never gonna show up if you go over that. So a lot of sellers are priced at a 1-1. They're like, oh yeah, we can just come down to
Stop
$100,000.
thinking like everybody else.
Yeah, we're gonna pad the price in order to be able to negotiate the price, but that doesn't usually work.
Or when a seller says, I need to get this. Okay. And I know Mark, my broker, we're in the office. I don't know if he can hear me back there, but um, when the seller says, I need X because I need to pay this and that medical bill or this and that, like, and I need this because of something that has nothing to do with the house. Okay. Or even if it's a lien on the house, do you think the buyer cares one iota about that?
No. And as far as
Ding,
needing,
ding, ding.
if you need a certain amount, it's usually because there's a loan payoff, and in a lot of cases, there's no loan payoff. So, do they really need to get a certain amount?
We're
I think
not.
that's the question.
It's because you want it, and that would beg the question, do you need to sell? And I know you hear this a lot, like a lot of sellers say no, but the underlying, you got to read between the lines and ask the sellers 10 questions deep. Like, a lot of our sellers have health problems, and ultimately you can't take it with you. And if the kids aren't going to use it and they don't want to pay for this monstrosity, then the answer actually is they need to sell, but they don't want to say it. They don't want to say it to us because then it sounds desperate. But if you have a good relationship with your realtor, you should be able to say that to them in confidence.
You just brought up a good point. So if you have a house that's inherited, in most cases, the person that inherits the house more than likely is going to sell it, and it's not. And a lot of times, it's not because they want to sell it, because they'd love to have a house in Sarasota and use it, but they can't afford the taxes and insurance on it, even if the house is paid off. So in that situation, they may actually do need to sell it because they can't afford it to keep it, plus the utilities alone.
Yeah. Another house I sold, I didn't have the listing, but I have the buyer, and just way over improved it almost. So my buyer's actually getting a really good value on the property. They did it till they lived in it, but they did such good quality that they're just, I'm like, we kind of scratched our heads like, how are they getting their money back? Well, it's time to move on, and they're realistic, and that's it. And it's a beautiful combination.
If you're going to over improve a property like that, you better go into it with a mindset that you're going to stay there for a very long time, because you're never going to see that value back out of it if you overdo it on upgrades.
There's
how it works.
Not everything is like a calculation. It's like you're enjoying it. Are you not? Like, you're taking pictures and family memories there, and you're having Thanksgiving dinner there. You're looking at all the great stuff that you put in there and enjoying the furniture and the feel and the location and the neighbors. It's not just a calculation. So there was a return on your investment from that regard, right? So it's not all dollars and cents every time.
Unless it's a flip situation where you're putting the upgrades in there because you want to get a return on your investment. Otherwise, your upgrades are your own personal preference, and if you overdo it, and if you put things in there that are super unique to your taste, you can't expect the next buyer to appreciate that and pay for it.
Right. And I think as of the date of filming, we're middle of April 2026, like I said. For the people that have bought still in 2021, I'm pricing their properties at what they paid in 2021. Are you kind of seeing that pattern? Or what's the pattern you see?
I'd say, yeah, the prices right now are more consistent with 2021 than 2022. Does that make sense?
Did they go up or down in 2022?
They went up in 2022.
Okay, so
if you see a house that was bought in 2022, it's roughly 15% lower now.
Oh, that's helpful. Well, I guess let me ask you this. Like, when you're computing a suggested listing price for a seller, like, do you have certain steps that you go in order, or how do you do it? Like, how do you come up with, because do you just wait to go to the house, or do you do preliminary work leading up to, I'm sure you do look at stats before.
I'll never give somebody a price without looking at the house. You just can't do that
over the phone.
No. You can't do that.
Unless the photos, if they give you really good photos and the build, like it's in one building, like for example, the view downtown, right? The views are going to vary slightly, and the building, You know the stack, so you know what the view is going to be. In some cases, I think you can, but it's rare, right? Because
Well, the view's everything. The
yeah,
view can make a humongous. I mean, even on, especially on a condo, like on Siesta Key, for
yeah,
example, like a view, like you can't look at an old listing photo a lot of times and tell
true.
what the view's going to look like without actually being at the house and
Yeah.
stepping on the balcony.
So what do you do first? Like, what do you pull up the tax record and
Well, yeah, I
then
look at the tax records, and believe it or not, the tax, you know how it has on, is it IMAP or
yeah, I'm at
Realist, that has the estimated value.
it does, and it's
Usually it's pretty accurate. I'm finding it's
well,
well, I mean
it sometimes is and
unless they
sometimes
did
isn't.
recent up something super recent, I'm finding
Right.
that it's pretty accurate.
Well, I have one. I guess by the time we actually air it, I'll already have been on, hopefully pending or closed. Okay, but I have a large listing in Minnesota, and it's an older house, and they've done improvements since. And what I was able to research in advance versus when I got there, there's an extra almost 1,000 square feet under error.
Hmm.
Okay, not there were no permits for
Hmm.
the extra space above, and maybe we don't have the full breakdown, like access to permits. I know we have most of it, but the point is, when I got to the house, I was like, oh, there's an extra literally 960 square feet. The house is built in 86. It was never on the market.
Hmm.
So there's never an MLS
And that's
listing.
why you have to go to the house, because a lot of that work that they added on the square footage hasn't not been permitted, and it's not going to be reflected in the tax records. And they could add another bedroom, which is going to add another $30,000 or more to the price,
Yeah.
and you can't tell that until you say, "Oh wait, I thought this house had three bedrooms," and you go there and there's four
Well,
bedrooms.
it was so what I didn't see was I couldn't tell if it was a 2 or 3 car. It was a 3 car plus an extension, like for a golf cart, plus the upstairs up above the garage is a 2 bedroom, 1 bath plus living room.
Hmm.
So you think you're walking into something and you're like confident. Next thing you know, they're like, zinger. No, we've got all this extra this. We've got the dock. The dock was redone, and the 2025 dock wasn't in the permits either because it's brand new dock.
Hmm.
So I don't know. You can only rely so much on stuff that you find
You can't. Yeah,
online.
you've got to look. You got to put eyes on the house, and there's. This is a real estate term. It's called external obsolescence, and that's actually,
Fancy term.
well, that means like if you go to the house and there's a neighbor, and their neighbor is has the neighbor has like a bunch of junk cars in the yard
Oh God.
that you oh, I didn't know this neighbor
Yeah,
was
we
doing this.
just
Well,
yeah.
that's going to affect the property value too, and that's not going to show by looking at a computer screen.
I mean, and not yeah, not only that, but like when they looked at Zillow, it was like it said, and I of course noted it too in my file. It was like value of 2.7 million. This is an acre on the beach and bay. It's 155 feet on the beach and 175 feet on the bay. I'm pretty sure it's going to be more than 2.7 million, and you got 4,000 square feet of home and interior space. So I was like, you can't rely on it. If someone just relied on Zillow, like it's like the bane of our existence because we look at Zillow because we know our consumer does as a comparative tool.
In 100% of cases, Zillow has never been into a house, never. So how,
Listen,
they
you
have
heard
no,
it here first.
but we have. So we can tell you what the house is actually worth. Zillow a lot of times is way off on the
It's
valuation.
like miraculously it's been spot on, but that's just okay. Eventually it can be accurate at some point, but that's probably more likely in a neighborhood like Lakewood Ranch and a newer development where there hasn't been a lot of turnover yet and they're all the same houses probably.
If you're comparing a cookie cutter house to five other ones that just sold in the last three
It's
months,
easy.
it's easy. But if you have a listing in Minnesota Key and it's unique, then how how does Zillow know what it's worth?
They don't.
No, they have no
They
idea.
absolutely don't, and that's why you need a pro. Another thing I do I started doing when I'm talking to sellers, when I'm comparing to your neighbors, and I know the couple that I met with, they had written down addresses, prices, price per square foot, and things like that. And I was trying to peer over to see what they had written down. Well, I had already pre-printed because I never know if I'm going to have Wi-Fi in a place, and I never want to rely on my computer, so I always have to have stuff printed out. Um, I like to look at the competition and print out their history. So, and I do that because it's like, okay, where did they start? When did they lower? How many times did they lower? When did they go pending? And look at the whole big picture. And I print it big for them so they can see, like, this is what everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Listen, I get it. You don't want to leave any money on the table. This is how we don't leave any money on the table. We don't do what everybody else is doing to get a different result. It's called insanity.
Well, people are not truthful too, and they'll tell. Could you imagine?
Ryan,
in
you
this
lie. You lie.
No,
What, agents? Agents?
no, I'm talking about sellers right now.
Oh, you're
but
not.
but you'll have a seller say, "Oh, my neighbor sold their house in 1 week." But just like you said, you go back and you search the history, and you find out that that house was on the market and expired
700 days before.
and it had 5 price reductions.
And they gave
So
20,000 credit for a roof.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, people lie, and they lie in order to justify a higher price.
We don't want to lie, you guys. That doesn't help
But
you.
that's why you have to have professionals that have to trust but verify.
I was saying too, like, I went on another listing appointment last week, and the prior listing was 700. And I'm like, I don't understand how you got anywhere close to this number. It's a cute house and it's well built and it has the pool, but I'm like, I don't get anywhere close to this. So my recommendation was 624.9. And then that seller, I don't know if I'll get the listing or not. This is just a case in point. And just, the seller's trying to beat me up on commission, but I'm like, my rate's the same. It's the same. My rate goes down when your price goes down, so my rate's the same. Because I know I might have to work for you for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So do I get a bonus for working? No, that's not. That's just how real estate goes, and that's the risk we take every day. We don't wake up with a paycheck. We understand that. We've been in the trenches for years. You know what I mean? But like, don't beat me up because I'm going to try to get that price.
Maybe they're testing you, Shayla, because a lot of sellers will
No.
say, well, they'll try to beat you up on commission to see how good of a negotiator you are for yourself. Because if you're not,
you stay, you're holding the line.
Well, no, because if someone asks me about commission and they ask me and they imply for me to reduce my commission, the first thing I'll say is this a test? To see
you say that?
Yeah. Because are you trying to find out if I could not,
trying to test
if I have
me?
a tough time negotiating for my own pay? Because if I can't do that, then how am I supposed to get you the best price for your house? It's common sense.
Well, I think some sellers need to be shown what you do. So I have taken over the years, I've curated a CV, and it's an interactive CV. I send it in advance. I can text it or email it or whatever, and it's always changing. And there's a lot of links there. There's a lot of interaction. It's clickable, whatever. There's like a lot of imagery, and it gives you samples of marketing and the things that I do and my history and my resume of sorts. It's like about me as an agent that you're going to be working with, and like, what have I done to procure sales? So by the time I'm sitting with you, it's like we're not just talking about mailers and email, the things. Like, I forget 90% of the stuff when I'm face to face. It's more about the relationship. You've already had the time to look at that. Hopefully, I think that's important, so they can be like, how are you different? There's a lot of things in that. It's 44 pages of showing how I'm different and how I procure my sales on the listings.
Well, a lot of sellers, they think that we don't do anything except put the house on MLS.
You do more than that? What do you do, Ryan?
I do. Well, I don't know about most, but a good majority of agents, they don't do a whole lot.
I know.
But Shayla and I both, we do videos. We will pimp out your listing like none other.
Pimp out.
Someone said, wow, someone just gave me that compliment that you did a really good job of pimping out this listing. But it works.
Yeah.
There's things that we do behind the scenes that you can't see, and we do reverse prospecting where you can go in and see
who's looking at your listing.
Who's looking at your listing, what agents are, and the agents that are sending the listing to the buyer, and you can see if that buyer marked that house as a favorite. And when you see that, the first thing you do is you pick up the phone and you say, hey, I noticed your buyer or your contact marked my listing as a favorite. What's their level of interest?
I'm sure most agents are shocked when you call them like, I didn't even know how you did that. And how do you,
Hmm.
that's one of the things I actually include in my marketing email to my sellers.
Well, the thing about marketing too, we're marketing the agents. That's why commissions are so important, and that's why we need to put out there, hey, the commission, the guesswork needs to be taken out of it too, because in this world, in the way the rules are now, there's no set commission in MLS anymore. So the agent has to be assured that, hey, the seller's committed to covering the commission that's on the
Well,
contract.
here's a great example, and I know you do the same thing. I get the listing agreement signed. It's like 8:30 p.m. on a Friday night. First thing Saturday morning, when it was appropriate to start calling and texting, I probably reached out to like 20 people on a Saturday morning because I got this new listing that I'm going to promote. I know a bunch of people in the area of the property, so I reached out to them. I reached out to, what I like to do is I reach out to the buyers agents who've sold similar properties within a kind of a period of time to
Hmm.
make sure they know it's coming. I don't Sometimes you got to be careful about giving the address, I guess. I don't know. But like, hey, there's a property coming soon. If you have a buyer looking for X, Y, and Z, just know it's going to be on the market Thursday, Friday. Just like reaching out to 20 some people right out the gate. I didn't have to mention that yet to them. I will. It's in my marketing, but you're already creating that buzz. I've got a vacant lot down south of this property. I reached out to her and said, "Hey, if this doesn't work, I've got something else." Like you're pivoting from Anna Maria to whatever your markets are and back and forth, because somebody might be looking down here and they end up buying. They tell you one thing and then they buy another thing. So
Hmm.
you're constantly pivoting
Hmm.
the clients around.
And the buyers, the buyers around here, they really rely on us because so many times the buyers do not live in Sarasota. They live outside of Sarasota, and they need some guidance and say, hey, this is a good house, this is a good location, and without an agent to agent marketing, that doesn't take place.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
when we talk about commission, the commissions after this NAR thing and that the buyers have to sign, the commissions have gone up, not down.
hmm
Even when a listing agent says we're offering, let's just hypothetically, 2%. I It doesn't phase me because I'm still going to write in what I charge, regardless of what they're offering. Okay. And I know some agents take the approach of like, well, I'm not going to show it then if you're not offering that, because you might find during negotiations you can get to that somehow. So
but there's a lot of agents that they think that they're bound to whatever that agent says that the seller's offering, but that's not
I
true
don't
at
listen. I
all.
know you don't.
That's not the way this works anymore. The commission is part of the contract.
Have you ever had a buyer pay your commission on the buy side?
Not the full amount, but
How
I've
much
had
is the
them.
most?
I had one time on a 1,200,000 house. The buyer had to pay a 0.5%.
That's not too bad.
No, you know what they told me? They said I was worth every penny because I was able to negotiate more off the price than what they had to pay me.
So I experienced the same, similar price range, similar percentage, and they literally were, because I said I can go back and ask for it, and because they felt the because we offered just the sweet spot price, they felt like they won. The seller didn't counter. There was some furniture that we asked for, and like that furniture kind of more than made up for that difference. So they're like, no, we want to start the relationship off on a really positive note. And by going back, it was like, we feel good. And we're more, he literally says, he's like, I'll Venmo you the difference right now. And I was like,
That's funny.
so they were very appreciative, like your
Yeah,
clients. And it's not a
the
ton.
yeah the worst thing. I'm not going to say the worst thing, but the thing that sellers should not do is counter the commission.
I've
Don't you
had
agree?
that. And my client walked away. Interestingly, yes, it was a
Because
big
I had a
turnoff.
client walk away too. I had a buyer say, you know what, it's not like we can't afford to pay the difference. We can, and you're worth it. But the fact that the seller is not willing to cover that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and then we're going to go find something else.
So yeah, I had that happen, and this is really rare because she ended up coming back to that property and buying it. And it was, I think, from the time we canceled to the time we went back to contract, maybe a 3-month period. And the agent, the first thing she said is they learned their lesson. And like, just don't put your, because that never happens. A buyer going back to the property is like a 1% chance. You're going to
Yeah.
lose the buyer.
Yeah, unless the buyer makes a low offer and then it sits on the market and then the seller comes back and says, "Hey, is your buyer still around?" But in a lot of cases, they already bought
They're
something.
like, we bought something
Too
and
late.
no, we don't want to work with you because you did turn us off.
Hmm.
And that's why it's everybody's different. Every house is different. Every client's different. If they feel like they won, I mean, this house is gorgeous and it's just, I'm happy for them. And they were like, Shayla, we are happy. You more than deserve this, just like your clients, because they see how hard you're working, right?
Hmm.
Um, so it can be a win. I mean, we try really hard for our buyers not to pay it, but sometimes it's going to sneak in there, I guess.
Yeah, real estate is an emotional transaction, and so you don't want to leave a bad impression. You don't want the buyer to have a bad impression in the seller because they don't know each other and they're just going by. Okay, well that seller pushed back on your commission,
Yeah.
and now they're mad about that, and then you just don't want to create that environment where everybody thinks that they're against each other.
It's a game day decision or whatever you want to call it, because I was ready and raring to go, because you and I are alike in that we're very bulldoggy. Like, we really want to get the very best and the most for our clients, whether we're on the buy side or the sell side. But I kind of just step back for a second, and it is our job to be not emotional because they're so excited. In this case, it worked out well because the agent on the other side was great. We all kind of worked together and collaborated, and it's not like tens of thousands of dollars for the buyer, right? So, and I'm like you, I'm going to stay firm on my value. I'm not going to give that up because I know, do you know how many texts we've gotten back and forth? Like, now it's furniture, now it's,
Hmm.
there's like, we've had to switch lenders, like it's a lot. It's
Hmm.
coordinating the surveyor, it's coordinating the appraiser, making sure the appraiser, it's presented and you show up to meet the appraiser. I mean, there's just a million things. So yes, we are worth the value when you express that and you stay firm on that. And likewise, we're going to fight for your price too. It comes out in the net.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
I think an agent that doesn't value themselves is a issue. I
Now,
think.
to say that we never discount, if we said this off camera, but on some listings, if I sell it on the other side, we can discuss it, because there are certain properties, unique properties, that are open for discussion. We just leave it at that.
Hmm. Yeah. No. I mean, everything's case by case.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, I think the rest of the season, which I consider season to be through summer now,
Yeah, no, I agree.
will be good.
We don't have a big difference in terms of the peak season versus the off season like we used to, and that's because I think a lot of people are waiting for the rates to come down before they take a vacation because it's just the economy, the way the economy is going right now. It's very expensive
Right.
for a lot of people to come
Life.
here in the wintertime.
But you know what? November, the homestead. We'll see. We'll see. It's just stuff
And
that's
one other
up in the
thing
air.
too about the season thing, people think a lot of sellers they think that well the peak season is the best time to list my house is going to be in January or February. But there's a lot of houses, and
Nope.
I have three buyers right now that are listing their house up north because now is their listing.
They're a good time.
Yeah, so when their house up north sells and they have all that money, then they're going to be buying something here.
That's why I tell everybody, because they're always so worried about timing. Why do you think the last 6 years, I think in a row, my highest closing ratio has been in August? Because people are here in the summer. Do you know how serious you have to be to come here in the summer? It's like, it's hot, it's muggy. You get off that plane, it's like, like you're coming from Wisconsin and the air is just like thick here. So
Mm-hmm.
you are serious. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so late start to the season, and we'll see what the summer brings. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see.
All I know is I get up early. We get up early. We do you work out in the morning?
Sometimes I do.
You sleeping. No,
I know when Shayla goes to the gym in the morning because she posts about it on Facebook.
I do.
She's like, "Oh, look, I was at the gym at 5 o'clock."
And then you feel bad.
So
And
you're
then
one
you
of
feel
those people
bad.
that has to rub it in everybody's faces. But at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm not. I'm sleeping at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, I'm at the gym by 5:30 ish.
Sometimes, well,
But
yeah.
you work out. You and your wife are, routine people. You stay in shape, and I think there's something to be said about people that we have like minds because we work out. We're in real estate. We have similar work ethics, and these type of people kind of align with each other, and we have the same mentality about a lot of things, and work ethic is definitely one of those. So,
I think it makes you a better agent because if you're disciplined in your personal life, then it manifests itself in your professional life too.
and it shows. You
No,
can't hide it.
no, that's
You
true.
get the tan to prove it. All right, Ryan.
My tan is from fishing,
Right,
by the
yeah,
way.
yeah,
It's
okay.
not a spray tan like I.
No, you're not a spray tanner. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll have to do this like quarterly or something. If
Yeah.
you guys made it to the end, congratulations. And
If you
if
guys have a suggestion on what we should talk about, please leave it in the comments.
yeah, always, because we didn't have a plan for today. As you could tell, this is very rambly and long. I don't even know how long this is, but there's a lot, and each day we wake up as realtors, like, there's so many things to talk about, so we just kind of go with it. But thank you for watching, subscribing, liking, commenting. How can they get a hold of you, Ryan?
You can call me. Can I say my
Pick up
number?
the phone. Yeah.
941-777-5264.
Oh, that's an easy number. And likewise, 941-544-7690.